Welcome to the Grinders Table, the podcast where we sit with C-suite executives and founders who are taking their industry by storm to figure out how you can build an exceptional career and business. Together, we'll try to uncover how they are both defying the odds and what you can learn from their experience. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Grinders Table, and I'm excited to have today's guest. In my usual fashion, I won't be introducing the guest. I would allow the guest introduce herself. So, Pamela, over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here. Now, I have formerly worked at Google. That was right out of college. And after I left the company, I decided to create my own digital agency, which actually has a Nigerian name to it. It's called Ajola Digital. And kind of like playing homage to my own experience with Nigeria and my time working there. And today the company is registered in Austria. It's more than 6 years old, and we have clients all over the world. So we work location independently. We're a Google partner and usually help our clients grow with Google and Facebook ads in particular.
Interesting. So what got you on this path? Typically, what we see is people probably did engineering or a science-related course, and then they find themselves in marketing by a stroke of luck or interest. What got you on this path?
So during my studies, I had worked in a whole bunch of different jobs, from working in entrepreneurship projects to being a language teacher in Russia to working in events in the bank and insurance and NGOs. And my goal really was to get exposed, right? To gain experience in a lot of different fields so that I could tell what I would like. Because I studied business, which is what you study when you don't know what you know, when you don't know what you want to do later. And so I ended up doing my master's degree in Dubai and Shanghai. And towards the end of it, I got asked by my career advisor there if I wanted to apply and work at Google. And so really that was my beginning of working in the ad space, of learning about it, of acquiring all the knowledge at the source directly, which was very useful. And when I left the company, I just noticed that my knowledge was worth something, or in many cases, a lot, to companies, that it was able to provide knowledge to them, provide growth. And so I decided to stay in this area. It was really not so much the passion theory. I'm not a fan of that. It was really like I was good at it. I saw it was useful to other people. And so I stayed in it.
You said two things. I'm going to pick on that, and I really want to talk about. Well, we'll start with the last one. You said you talked about how you're not a fan of passion projects. Why did you say that?
So I'm okay if people do passion projects, right? I'm just not a fan of the passion theory that says do what you're passionate about, right? I think it's great and you should do what you're passionate about. But if you start doing that 24/7 or in a 30 or 40-hour job a week, a lot of people lose their passion for it. They lose their interest. And with that, also the output decreases. Whereas what I've noticed in my life is that whatever I was good at, I enjoyed that. So my joy is being drawn from my skills being of use to other people.
I think I kind of agree with you there. And you talked about diversifying. There is this school of thought that says, you must be purpose driven, laser focused on one thing. But from your life, you're saying there is value in actually doing so many things.
So
Can
I
you
think,
expand on that?
sure, yeah. So I think in the beginning, when you're in the early 20s, you're supposed to try out different things. You are supposed to figure out what you want. Because if you don't really ever try anything, you'll not know whether it's going to be something fun. So that's why I always encourage people to use their 20s to explore, to try out different things. And then usually where it's time to kind of like hone in your focus or hone in your skills in something is around your late 20s, early 30s. And that's then also where usually the value output is increased. And with that, of course, the income gets increased too.
So let's talk about building Agile Digital. What were the challenges you experienced when you started building out this baby of yours?
So I come from a family of no entrepreneurs, and I was also the first one who had finished university beyond like any degree. So first one to do a bachelor's degree, first one to do a master's. And so it was a lot of firsts for me in terms of like how do I create a company? How do I hire? How do I determine how much I pay people? How much do I charge for my services? I'm and then mostly uncovering certain beliefs that didn't serve me anymore around sales, around earning money, around serving other people, my own value, and then letting go of those beliefs and replacing them with others that were more used to me in terms of where I wanted to go and which goals I wanted to achieve.
Yeah, and in building your team, what are the what have you learned from building your team? Because we know talent, well, everybody says capital, but I also believe that talent is one big indicator of if you succeed or not. How do you manage to motivate your talent or the resources around you to actually achieve the organizational goals that you want to achieve?
So talent is one thing, but what matters a lot more in this world nowadays is how you're able to brand and sell yourself. I know a lot of talented people. I went to a high school for highly gifted children, which was the only one of its kind in Austria. And, many of these people are very talented, but what you achieve in life or what you are able to accomplish depends more on how you're able to communicate and sell your value, right? Now, I can hire talents, I can hire people, but what was really a challenge for me was determining how much do I pay them? What is their work worth to me? What is their time worth to me? And how do I, properly compensate them? And definitely one of the biggest challenges for me was that I am a really big giver. I often give too much and give others first before I take care of myself. And so I had to learn that lesson in a very brutal way, but I learned it. So yeah, really just making sure you calculate well what do you pay other people, get a feeling of what their work is worth to you and the company. And don't forget to pay yourself along the way and compensate yourself accordingly.
Oh yes, compensating yourself for the work. Yeah, we entrepreneurs tend to forget themselves. You talked about branding. You touched about branding, and we all know that. Well, not everybody knows, but perception is often reality. Um, for people that are building out their business, what tips do you have in terms of them branding themselves to be the best, or in terms of building out a good perception for their businesses, or even a personal career?
Sure. So, what I keep hearing from people over and over, and I mean, I've been active on social media since 2008 and LinkedIn. I think I joined LinkedIn 2010 or something. So, it's been a long time. And people often tell me that they really appreciate me showing up over and over again over the years. So that has created a trust in them that I am there, that I'm approachable, and that I'm here to stay. I'm not like here for a year and then I disappear again. So that was really, really valuable. And I think also just sharing what you're up to. And it doesn't always have to be all rosy and glory and so on. It's okay to share your challenges here and there. But of course, people love the success stories more, right? Now, growing up in a culture where you are trained mostly to be humble, right? Don't talk too much about yourself. If you did something well, then somebody else is supposed to mention it. It doesn't necessarily help in that case, right? So I had to learn to talk about myself in a way that it feels good, that it feels authentic, and it feels right to me, and that I'm comfortable around whatever I share being out there and being read by, a lot of people that I don't know or have never interacted with.
Yeah, yeah, being authentic, and I think that a lot of people struggle with that. because either sometimes you feel like you're bragging, or you feel like you're not even authentic enough. What advice will you give people in terms of sounding authentic?
So think about it this way. When you are worried about, bragging too much or maybe sounding incredible, just share the situation how it really is, right? If, instead of just sharing, oh, hey, I just finished this master's degree, right? You could say, I spent a lot of time working on this. You could put a number to the hours. You could put up, if you have sacrificed something, right? I mean, I'm not a fan of sacrificing anything in general, but a lot of people do that. And then share how you got to that goal. That usually is authentic, and people get inspired by those things. So take the focus off of you and on other people. So by you sharing things of how you've achieved certain goals, you're automatically inspiring others. And there can never be too many stories of inspiration out there.
Yeah, you talked about sacrifices, and I'd like to hear your perspective on that. That sounds like something interesting.
Sacrifices mean that you haven't optimized your life or your work properly, right? And that you think that you need to put one's level of importance over something else, right? I think that you can have it all. I think that you can have a good work life. I think that you can have a good personal life, and that you do not need to prioritize one over the other. Unfortunately, a lot of people are caught up in this hustle hard mentality where they think, oh, in order to achieve certain goals, I need to hustle hard, I need to work a lot of hours. But honestly, very few people are productive beyond the 6 hours. A lot of time is spent on social media or on not productive work, right? So, one of my favorite books is the one from Cal Newport, Deep Work, where he really shows on how to work properly. I mean, it seems like we've lost this in the past 20 to 25 years with computers, right? But like earlier, people would really sit down with a piece of paper, write stuff, produce stuff, or be in their shop, manufacture stuff. And these days, with all of these devices around, we lost that ability to create deep work, to really focus on something for a couple hours, get it done, and then we're ready. So instead, people just drag their work, don't communicate when they're late with a deadline. They don't communicate when something is difficult. They procrastinate out of reasons that can always be solved. And that then makes them be busy, right? When in the end, it's just about managing your own time better, being more productive, and really having a good self awareness of when you are being efficient, when you're not being efficient.
Absolutely, I agree. I know I recently wrote something around how being busy is not the same thing as being productive. And we find that many people, from business people to entrepreneurs to people building out their careers, fall into that rat race of trying to be busy rather than being very productive. And I absolutely agree also that people are not productive beyond 6 hours. After that, they just performing activities. Anyways, you mentioned a book, Deep Work. What other books would you recommend for us to read?
So I think a classic that's soon been out there for 20 years, I think, is Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which sounds very scammy-ish, and Ramit himself says that. But it just has everything what you need to know about personal finance. How to that saving is not always the answer. That you should rather ask like 30,000 instead of $3 questions. And I'm rephrasing him, right? So these are his words. And that was really a game changer for me. Also, one of the first kind of like courses I bought for myself. And other than that, I would probably also list what she called Jen Sincero, You're a Badass at Making Money. Great book. Really, really good read. I can only recommend it to everyone. Also connects to the case of like, hey, you don't need to work, 100 hours a week in order to be successful. But know the value that you have, learn how to charge for it, and get your money mindset right.
Two of the books you recommended have relations to money. Interesting. So I really see that you like money anyway. Who doesn't like money? Um, um, so let's take a step back and talk about one time you've failed. The reason I ask this question is a lot of people like to avoid the conversation around failure, maybe because it makes them look weak or, well, vulnerable and all. But I'd like you to tell us one time you feel, especially building out maybe Agile Digital or building out something very significant in your life. And how did you pull yourself out of that rut of failure? Or how did you pull yourself out of feeling sorry for yourself?
Think one of my main mistakes was when I hired my first person. Like, I actually employed them, not as a freelance, but employed them. I had calculated the salary. I had the salary that I had given my accountant back then, not an accountant, it was like tax lawyer, something like that. I'm not sure what the English term is now. And I told the person a certain amount gross, and they said, yes, that's fine. But what they didn't tell me is that when you say gross in Austria, still about, I think, a good 30% get added on top of that, which make up certain payments for the person. So I had calculated with this amount that I'd given them per hour gross, but then still another 30% of costs had come on top of that, which I was only aware of when I got the first payment slip, right, for that person. And that was a big shock because I hired them. I didn't want to reduce their salary. I thought that was unprofessional, that I should own that mistake. But of course, when you suddenly have like 30% more costs than what you calculated, that's a lot. And so I guess that's also partially where, the whole money thing comes in, where I decided, you know what, instead of trying to cut the costs here or decrease the salary of the person, which would be highly unprofessional, I just have to work myself on making up for that amount. And let me take that as a challenge to up my revenue goals and make even more money.
Actually, that is actually a very good example, because as you build out your career and you build out businesses, there are certain mistakes you make that aren't planned, but what's important is how you remedy the situation or how you, walk out of it. So actually, really, really relevant example. Thank you for spending over 16 minutes talking to us. And as we round up, what are 3 things you like to leave with the listeners?
So next to my agency, I've been building up this kind of like brand, which is called Hustle Less and Live More. And I think that's really the first thing, right? Like, reduce the hustle and just live a bit more. You will much more remember the times that you spend off your screen than those you spend on your screen. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is your business is always a direct reflection of where you are with your mindset about yourself and your life. So I know that might sound harsh, but it is the best mirror that can be held in front of yourself. So if something isn't working in your business, it's a direct reflection of something not working within you or something being in misalignment with your mindset. And the third thing would be something that I guess I have to tell myself also a lot more often is just chill, relax. It's not that serious. Laugh a bit more. When you fail, smile, you'll get over it. It's all right. It's going to be fine. And you'll do really, really well, probably a lot better than you can imagine.
Amazing. You've all been listening to Pamela Wagner of Agile Digital, and this was time well spent. Thank you once again, Pamela, for joining us.
Thank you too. It was a pleasure.
That's all on today's episode of The Grinders Table, and thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MonsieurOM. That's at Monsieur for Miss in French, OM. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.